Hi everybody, ronarray here, and today I'm going to showcase my Pulverize Overpower Druid build. Pulverize was all favorite in pre-season, then it fell a little from grace and tornado builds took over, but I think right now Pulverize in a pretty good position. It can pretty much overpower all the enemies and can create really huge damage in just a few seconds. And Overpower Crits are pretty satisfying thing. You can also one-shot a lot of normal enemies and can run pretty fast through the dungeons just because you can clear your way just in a few crits. Let's go forward and see what have changed for Pulverize and how you can make it work right now. So talking about how the build works, right now we just need to stack a few different bonuses. The main one is Overpower and different sources of Overpower which can help you. And the second will be a Critical Strike. Chance and critical strike damage, because the most damage we are doing is pretty much when overpower stacks together with critical. That way we need to stack as many overpower sources as possible and as much critical strike chance as possible. Talking about overpower sources, probably the most important thing for it is Banished Lord Talisman, because Pulverize is pretty resource hungry and you will spend a lot of resource all the time, and Banished Lord Talisman will give you a guaranteed overpower when you are spending enough primary resource. You will also get additional critical strike damage with overpower hits, which is completely amazing. Other sources of overpower such as Paragon and passives is pretty good as well. I'm also taking 3 points to the provocation, because that way we will be able to overpower constantly just by staying in the Werebear form. Another passive that pretty much helps us a lot with stacking constant overpowering would be Enhanced Overpower. It gives us a chance to just get 3 overpower every 12 seconds if we are remaining healthy. That way we are stacking different sources and we need to get as much critical strike as well, so when we will finally overpower, it will work perfectly with our critical. After all of that is pretty much band together, the gameplay itself and the rest is pretty simple. We just need to run the enemies and hit them with our Pulverize, destroying them completely when overpower and critical strike damage procs. So talking about the unique items that the build require. Generally you just need 2. One of them is Insatiable Fury, which is an amazing chest for all Werebear builds. Right now it gives you 3 ranks to all Werebear skills and a lot of armor, together with damage reduction while fortified and overpower damage, which stacks completely amazing with everything that we already need. On top of that, we are using Banished Lord Talisman, because it's an amazing source of additional overpower as I already mentioned, and it can provide critical strike chance. You can also use Vasilis Prayer if you think that it's needed, but I generally don't really recommend it that much. And Godslayer Crown is pretty much a really good option too, especially because you can stun enemies constantly and it will pull enemies to you all the time when you are stunning them. It also works pretty alright for bosses if you need more damage, so if you feel it that way, try to use it. T-Bolt's Wheel as another great option. I generally still prefer defensive pens, however, if you're fighting single target enemies, T-Bolt's Wheel could be a pretty nice option. But generally, the most important units is just Insatiable Fury and Banished Lord Talisman. So talking about the aspects, the whole idea is pretty simple and straightforward. We're generally using the shockwave aspect on our main weapon, generally on the staff or on the mace. That way we can just create like a big shockwave with Pulverize and we will be able to hit our enemies from a distance. I think that's the most mandatory aspect for the whole build, so try to get as high percentage as possible. We're also using the aspect of Arcing Horror just to make Pulverize an Earth skill, because we are taking like different bonuses from Earth. That's a pretty important aspect, so make sure you're using that, because that way your Paragon and other bonuses will pretty much just work. Aspect of Retaliation is pretty good as well, because we have a lot of Fortify and we are constantly receiving the bonus. At the gloves I'm using Aspect of Rampage and Werebear, because Grizzly Rage is a pretty good bonus in terms of damage and multiplier. On the pants I'm still using Aspect of Juggernaut, because that way it's much easier to just stack armor. At boots, Ghostwalker aspect was perfect just to run a little faster. At helmet, I really prefer like rare helmet, because I can get aspect of ballistics, that way we can get like 2 ranks for our skills when we have Fortify, and our Pulverize is pretty much an Earth skill. So talking about the stats, for the stats we're just focusing on overpower damage where we can, and we also need to get as much damage to crowd control as possible, because it stacks pretty well with our Paragon passives. That way, it's pretty much most important stats for damage. For survivability, we just focus on life and damage reduction. We don't really need additional armor because Juggernaut aspect together with bonus from Insatiable Fury will just make our armor skyrocket, and we will be able to have enough just with that. So just focus on damage reduction and lives here. On the rings, I would say critical strike chance is pretty important as well, and you can get like damage to claws or critical strike damage as additional bonuses if you don't have another option. So talking about the abilities, as a basic attack I'm still talking Maul just because it will be much easier to use in the Rage of the Grizzly, and that way we can always have a basic attack just to generate spirit if it's needed. Most of the time it's not really required, so you can even drop it out of the build. Next comes Pulverize, it's like our main skill, and the passive I'm going for its Rage and Pulverize. I think it works so good when you can stun enemies consistently, and it will provide a lot of additional crowd control. I think it works better than Primal Pulverize and should be taken in the most cases. I'm taking Wild Impulses together with Iron 4 just for additional damage and survivability. Moving forward, I'm taking Earthen Bulwark, but just one level because in the Grizzly Rage we will be unable to use that. I'm also getting Debilitating Roar together with Preserving Debilitating Roar, because that way we can heal at all times. It also helps to maintain your health at healthy, and that way we can get another passive damage bonuses just to hit harder. I'm taking both Vigilance and Ancestral Fortitude, and here I'm taking Trample together with Savage Trample. I think it's pretty important because Savage Trample will help us to stay at the maximum spirit or close to the maximum spirit, because our skill Pulverize is really spirit hungry. I'm also taking Crushing Earth and Stone Guard. Both of them are completely amazing, and since our Pulverize is an Earth skill due to the aspect, that way we can benefit from both. Moving forward, I'm taking all possible nature magic skills here: Circle of Life, Defiance, Natural Disaster, and even 1 point to Resonance. It's not really that effective, because our skill is pretty much Earth skill, so it's nature magic. I'm taking Grizzly Rage together with both passives, and the last and not the least passive for our damage bonus is Arcane Strength. I think it's a pretty good one, because that way we can receive a lot of maximum life together with damage bonus while we are healthy, we should be healthy at most situations, and increase overpower damage too while we are healthy as well. I think it works pretty good. We can also try to use Earth and Might instead, but I prefer Arcane Strength because it's much more stable. So talking about Spirit Boons, we just focus on our strongest parts. First we are taking Awareness for reduced damage from elites, which is pretty much cool. Then we are taking Skis Talents because it works so nice. We need additional critical strike chance everywhere. Evan Wrath right now is a pretty good because it's now multiplicative, and it's a really strong one. Then we are taking Calamity because extend duration of ultimate skills stacks really good with Grizzly Rage that we are using. And the last but not the least is Calm Before the Storm. That way we will have more chances to reduce the cooldown of ultimate, and we will be able to stay in the Grizzly Rage much more. However, if you have issues with survivability, you can go for Masochistic instead, because that way you will have additional way to heal yourself. Talking about our Paragon, we're just trying to benefit from the same bonuses that we stack everywhere else. The first glyph is Exploit, we don't really need a lot of dexterity around, and that should work pretty alright. I'm taking both Tenacity and Prime and going top. The next board is Earth and Devastation. Earth and Devastation itself is a pretty important passive. That's the main reason why we are taking damage with crowd controlled. So try to get it as fast as possible. The glyph here is Werebear. Werebear is completely amazing, it's providing damage and it's providing damage reduction. So it works really good. Then I'm exiting to the right, and The next board is Ancestral Guidance. Glyph here is Dominate for overpower damage. I think that one is pretty important. So I'm taking Dominate here together with Harmony and Resolve, going to the right through Natural Attunement and Reclamation, and taking Ancestral Guidance. After that, I'm exiting through the top and getting Survival Instinct as the next board. The glyph here is pretty much territorial, just for damage to close enemies. Its first should be closed most of the times, especially when we are fighting like stronger rares and enemies like that. And for the damage reduction, because damage reduction makes our build a real tank. I'm also taking Grizzly and Battle Worn Hide and moving to the next board, exiting through the right. The next board is Constructing Tendrils. We just needed to put the glyph here. The glyph is pretty much the spirit. The spirit will give us a lot of critical strike damage, together with a pretty nice additional bonus, which will stack our damage to 12% of additional multiplicative bonus. That way we can just deal more damage, and it works pretty good with the whole board of Constructive Tendrils itself. We're also taking a lot of maximum life here if possible, and that way we can tank much more. Talking about Sentinel, there's not a lot of changes compared to usual builds that people run, and that I run myself. So Flash of Adrenaline together with Tactical and Duration support, and I think Safeguard is a really good bonus as well. With the Tempest, right here we just need resource, try to get resource as high as possible for more primary resource generation, and Swift, because with Swift we will be able to generate much more resource by itself. I'm also taking Fortified because it's a consistent bonus which will make us stay in Fortified at all situations. I think it's more consistent than passives of the Druid itself, and I think it worked just so good. So that was my Pulverize Overpower build. I think it's in a really good position right now. It's tanky, it's strong, it can crowd control enemies, and it's not that slow anymore. Especially since we can now use Trample to just go through the enemies and pretty much ignore everything else in the vaults, because we don't really need to clear everything here. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you will be able to enjoy Druid that season as well. Please like and subscribe for more RPG content, and see you next time.